Hello?
Hey, John, this is Eric Bergstrom. How are you?
Good, Eric. How you doing?
I am wonderful. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry. It's just been such a crazy week, and it's just like, oh, man. So I thought it'd be easier to just get a hold of you when I was free.
Exactly, and you threw me off with that video chat thing. When I saw that,
What
I was,
the hell was that? I don't know where
exactly.
that came from.
I was like, hold on. Technically, I got to figure out how to do this.
I was a scary-looking guy looking back at me on the phone.
Yeah, I don't really want to do that.
I realized it was me.
Yeah, I don't really want to do that either. We're in radio, right? You do TV too, but
That's why we're in radio.
exactly.
Right.
So, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about your career. You know, I grew up watching you. A lot of my friends did as well. You're from the UP. I am too. Growing up in the UP, what led you to this career anyway?
Wait a minute. First of all, where are you from?
Menominee.
Oh, you're Menominee Maroon, huh?
I am. That's right. Yeah, I moved away to Minneapolis and Chicago, but my wife brought me back here, and I'm enjoying it. It's a lot slower, a lot more enjoyable than Chicago, trust me.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Good for you. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Start over.
Yeah. I just wanted to know, like, growing up in the UP, like I did, what led you to this career in broadcasting, sports, in particular?
Well, I was a sports nut growing up. I as all of my friends were up in Negaunee, I mean, we just lived and died for sports, whether it was the Packers or the Tigers or the University of Michigan or Michigan State. I mean, that was our life growing up. And, obviously there aren't too many kids that get to make a career in sports on the field or on the court. So the next best thing I thought was to find a way to get into the games for free, and went to college and sort of majored in broadcast journalism, and one thing led to another, and started at the bottom and kind of worked my way up and had a lot of fun along the way.
Now, so let's get into that. Are you a Wolverine or a Spartan?
Well, it depends. I'm a Wolverine football fan and a Spartan basketball
Wow, that's something I haven't seen. I'm Wolverine all the way there.
fan. I know. There aren't many people that are like that.
No.
But that's the way I am.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
a
had...
big Tom Izzo fan, but growing up, Michigan was so great.
Sure.
And their colors were maize and blue, which was the Negaunee Minor colors.
Yep,
so
love
pretty
it.
hard to get away from that.
Love it, yeah. I've had that conversation with my mother-in-law. She's from Minneapolis, and she doesn't understand how you can't like both, and I guess you can now that I talk to you. But for a long time, I was telling her you can't. If you grow up here, you cannot. You got to pick one or the other.
I know. I'm pretty unique in that way. I know that.
You are. Now, you grew up in Negaunee. I imagine you've been to Marinette Menominee before a few times, I bet, right?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, we used to play some baseball down in the Menominee area. They were always really good. I remember that. But I remember when I was growing up, Menominee was such a great basketball school. I mean,
Right.
I remember being at old Hedgecock Fieldhouse in Marquette watching Pat Miller
Oh, wow,
and those
yeah.
guys. And those great teams, Dewey Belisle,
Yep.
Haglund. I still remember their names.
That's neat because
I mean-
they just had the anniversary of that whole team, or all the guys left came and they had a big anniversary thing at the high school for them. I think last year or the year before. It was pretty neat.
Oh, that's great. And Pat actually became a good friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a few years, but he was a good friend of mine for a while, as was his sister, and great people. But that was, we looked at those Menominee teams almost the way you'd look at a great college team nowadays or something. I mean,
Sure.
We held them in awe. They were so good. They were so much fun to watch.
My first memory of Pat Miller, I am a big Pistons fan, but I was a big fan of the Bad Boy Pistons. My dad was telling me Pat Miller taught or was trying to teach Dennis Rodman how to shoot free throws back in the day. That's the first time I had heard of him.
I remember that. I think he was at Northwood Institute at the time coaching, and Pat was a free throw shooting guru. I mean, people from all around the country went to him to learn the fundamentals of shooting free throws. I still remember that. Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Story.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you did a lot of interviews with the Packers, worked with them throughout your career. What was the toughest interview you ever had with the Packers?
Oh, the toughest. Actually, it was Reggie White. After I went on the air and kind of blasted him because people had donated like hundreds of thousands of dollars to rebuild his church, then they never rebuilt the church.
I remember that,
Yeah, and nobody knew where the money went. And I kind of blasted Reggie, and then in the locker room after a game, I asked him a question, and I'll never forget. He goes, "You're asking me a question?" I'm like, "Yeah, what do you think of, so-and-so?" I think if you had a problem with something I did or said, you would have come to me instead of sitting here asking me questions. So it was we had a real tense thing.
Right.
The locker room was super quiet. It's like, oh, wow. Reggie White could have killed Maino.
See, that's what happens when you have a microphone in front of you, because I remember that, and I think I was blasting him too, but at that time I didn't have a microphone in front of me, so that leads to problems.
And standing about 6 inches away from him.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that one.
And he is not a small guy either, so it's kind of,
oh my goodness, it was incredible.
Yeah.
It's still one of my, I shouldn't say favorite memories, but one of my memories that stands out the most. Put it that way.
Now, of all the guys you have interviewed or met with the Packers, and Brett Favre, the list goes on and on. I saw a picture of you with Sterling Sharp when he first came into the Packers. Who was the most fun guy to interview with the Packers throughout your career?
Well, it certainly wasn't Sterling Sharp.
No, I know. You have to tell me about that picture, because I saw you talking to other people. Was it as awkward as the picture looks?
Well, it was draft day. So Sterling had just come into town, and I don't think Sterling was too happy to be drafted by the Packers.
Yeah, at that time nobody did, right? I just did an interview with Tony Mandrich. I just talked to Tony Mandrich, and he was telling me that whole story too when he got drafted. At that time, nobody did, right?
Nobody did. Nobody wanted to come to Green Bay. It was the dregs of the NFL. It really and truly was. So he was in kind of a lousy mood to begin with, and he was sitting there waiting for the, big interview with me on Channel 11, and he's probably thinking to himself, oh my gosh, where am I? What have I got myself into? And he was good though for a while, for about halfway through his first year. He was approachable and everything, and then he just turned 180 degrees, and you could not talk to him after that. You just a different sort of human being.
And now look what he's doing.
What is he doing now?
He's doing press. He's in the media now.
Oh, is he?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they know he was, and then he left for a while.
Yeah, I think he's still doing it. You wouldn't think that back then, would you?
Yeah. Some of the good guys, though, Edgar Bennett was one of the all-time good guys.
Yeah.
I still remember that. Frankie Winters, I was great friends with Frankie. We had a great time. Brett was great up until his last few years when he didn't know if he wanted to be here anymore, didn't know if he wanted to play anymore, didn't want to hang out with his teammates anymore.
Yeah.
He was great right up until then. But for an organization, they had a lot of really good guys come through. I will give them credit for that, because in the Forrest Gregg era, man, they had some thugs on that football
I know,
team.
Right? They had a lot of them.
And they really cleaned that up. And they brought in for almost 100%, not 100%, but close to it, just good people. And that was cool to cover those kind of guys.
Do you remember, going from the time you said the dregs, do you remember a time when in your head when you thought, boy, things are changing right now, where you thought, this could change into something good here?
Well, for the first half of 92, Holmgren's first year, still didn't really have that feeling, because there were still a lot of the same guys out there that we saw play so horrifically. I was talking with somebody just the other day, and I remember the last 4 games of the 91 season, we thought that might have been the worst football team in the history of the NFL, the way they played in those last 4 games.
I remember, yeah.
Remember that? It was terrible. I remember they played Philadelphia that year, and Philadelphia could have beaten them. They could have picked a number and beaten them by that score. It was incredible. And Denver too. It was horrible. So 92, it was hard to say that anything was going to change all that much, because there's a lot of those same guys. But then halfway through 92, I remember they beat Houston in like a Sunday night game, and it was like, wow, Houston's like a contender here. And they beat them. And then they beat, Philadelphia, and it's like, hey, what's going on here? They're beating some teams that we're not used to seeing them. That's when it first started, when they were playing those kind of games and beating some teams that had just pummeled them years before, or even playing them close. It's like, what's going on here? And that's when I first noticed it, right about then.
Yeah, pretty neat. Now, this doesn't have to be with the Packers, but what are some of your favorite moments or favorite moment? I'm sure it's hard in your broadcast career.
Well, there's no question. My number one favorite moment, March 17th, 1994, and I know that because it's my birthday, and I was doing play-by-play at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and we knocked off the University of California with Jason Kidd in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
I remember that well.
Nothing to top that. Nothing in the world could top that.
Yeah, that was a really cool time for that university, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And then, people don't realize they played Syracuse in the next game, and Syracuse had 3 guys that played for a long time in the NBA and played them really, really tough. And I'll never forget, remember little things. Ben Berlowski, Green Bay was down by 1 with about a minute and a half left to play. Berlowski drove the baseline, put up the shot off the glass, scored, whistled. You'd think it's an and one, and they called an offensive foul on our guy. and it's like, I hate to say it, but the name on the jersey sometimes does matter.
It sure does, yeah. Unfortunately.
College basketball. And we did not get that call, and we ended up losing by like 4. So I don't even remember, but I still remember that has been one of the more heartbreaking times. So, and that was, I had the greatest time of my life 2 days before, then one of the most heartbreaking ones 2 days later. But NCAA tournament, if you're involved with it in any way, shape, or form, that is such a cool sports entity. I think it's unmatched.
I agree with you. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about, your relationship with Larry McCarron. Talk a little bit about that. And before you talk about him and the relationship, where did he get the Johnny Boy thing?
Well, okay. Do you want to know the first time Larry McCarron and I ever spoke to each other?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know how old you are, but 1984.
Okay.
Monday Night Football.
I was
in
10.
Denver. Okay.
Yep.
Well, okay. You might really remember. There's like 2 feet of snow that came down during that game.
Yeah, I remember.
The Packers' first 2 offensive plays of the game, they fumbled on both plays, and the Broncos picked it up and ran it back for touchdowns on the first 2 plays of the game. Okay? After that, Lynn Dickey was unbelievable. Threw for like 300 yards. Packers had a chance to win. They didn't quite do it. Okay. So I'm in the locker. I'm outside, and I'm shooting with a camera, and everything is just soaked like you can't believe. Okay? So I sneak into the locker room before the game actually ends to get some towels to try to dry off my stuff. Well, what happens, all of a sudden I hear the doors just like explode open. Game was over. In walks Forrest Gregg and the team. I'm not supposed to be in the locker room, obviously. I'm hiding behind one of those big towel bins, those rolling towel bins.
Yep.
I'm literally hiding behind that, praying he doesn't see me, as he just tears into his team like you can't believe. So he ends his thing. He goes up for his press conference. So because of that, I'm the last one to get to the press conference. And in those days, you just stand there, and it's a big scrum around him. So I'm, in back, and I'm one-man banding, as they call it, carrying the big recorder and the camera and the microphone, and I'm trying to, hold my microphone halfway close to Forrest Gregg. Well, it's all wet. It's soaking wet, and it keeps hitting this one Denver, sports writer in the ear or something, okay? So he keeps knocking my microphone aside. Well, I got, the little Nagani temper, so I take and I smack it against the side of his head. So he turns on me. We start going at it. Forrest even stops the press conference. He goes, what the hell is going on over there? So anyway, me and this guy go in the hallway, and we're kind of scuffling. All of a sudden, he looks up, and his eyes are real wide, and he lets go, and he, literally runs off, okay? And I turn, and there's Larry McCarron standing there. Back in those days, he was about 270, 275,
right.
Big, hairy. All he had was a towel around him, okay? And I go, wow, Larry, thanks for the backup. He goes, well, you might be a bleeping TV guy. At least you're one of ours. He walks off. So that's
funny.
My first contact with Larry McCarron.
Wow, and thus began a relationship from there.
And you know what? I was watching Casablanca last night. It's like, you know what? This might be the start of a beautiful relationship, Larry.
No, here's the real question: is there YouTube footage of that? I'd like to see that.
No, I don't think there is.
I'm gonna look.
That would be fun to see if there was. I'll say that right now.
But you guys had a good chemistry. Where did that Johnny Boy thing come from that he would always say?
No, that's just Larry being Larry. I have no idea.
Funny. All right. Well, John, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I had a great time, and hopefully we'll talk again. Okay, and take care.
Eric, anytime, anything I can do for you, please. You got my number. Just give me a call.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.